Hello and welcome back to Hadoop Exam Learning Resources. In this series, I am going to cover question number 33 from AWS Solution Architect Professional Level Exam, which are provided by hadoopexam.com. So now let's visit question number 33 and understand this. What is it? Radiobook.com has their .mp3 and .oog files are hosted on Amazon AWS EC2 instance, not S3, EC2 instance. And Radiobook is using Amazon CloudFront as a content delivery network that can help Radiobook to increase the performance of their web application and mobile application and significantly lower the latency of delivering content to their customer. For CloudFront to access origin, what is the origin here is Amazon EC2. The source of the content behind CloudFront, the origin has publicly available and reachable as all files are hosted in S3 or in EC2 are accessible. Anyone with the origin domain name or IP address could request content directly and bypass the CloudFront. Is there any way by which this can be restricted and content can be protected? So let me first explain you what question is saying here, correct? So basically question is saying here radiobook.com. This is an basically audio and read content both provider basically, and at the simultaneously you can visit. So radiobook.com is the website you can visit as well. So now what the question is saying, the in AWS basically they have their EC2 instance and all .mp3 and .ogg files are hosted here, correct? And you are using Amazon CloudFront for basically faster delivery. CloudFront caches the content at many places and kind of thing, correct? So to CloudFront access this material, this and this, and then whoever visit as a user, if you visit from wherever, from United States or from London or anything, so then this content quickly available. Now a question is saying, if CloudFront want to access this material, it means this material should be publicly available. Then only CloudFront can access it and cache it basically. So that is what you might be using S3 bucket. So you would have seen that public content can be cached by Amazon itself, but if authenticated contents are not easily basically cached, and CloudFront would not contain it. Cache it. So basically, so how to protect this? So if I'm a user and I get to know somehow, okay, this, why would I go via this route? If .mp3 and .ogg file I can directly download from EC2 instance because these are publicly available. So that is a threat here. So what I will do, basically I start website scanning and all mp3 files from EC2 instance I'll download and store it locally. That I can do it. I can bypass this entire flow, correct, and directly go here. So then how do you protect this? What is the solution for that? So no, it is not possible. Content needs to be public. That is a basic need. You have to put this content in S3 bucket and then encrypt the entire S3 bucket. So what it is saying, entire S3 bucket, I'm just saying if you put .mp3 file here and .ogg file and encrypt this bucket. First of all, you cannot encrypt S3 bucket completely. You can only encrypt content inside. So option is saying encrypt entire S3 bucket. So altogether this option is wrong. You can use security groups to permit only CloudFront to access the origin, correct? So we will understand more on explanation. You can use NACL to permit only CloudFront access to it. So CloudFront want to access this content, either you can use NACL or you can use a security group. That is what option is saying. So which one is correct out? And first option is saying no, it is not possible, content needs to be public. That is not a correct answer basically, so I can also exclude this. Now option remains only C and D. We need to select which one is correct here. So before answering this question, let's go to some explanation. Too much content to cover, but let's try to cover it and learn more, correct? So that is what your EC2 instance is basically in diagram. This is Elastic Load Balancer, this is S3, where you can host your content basically, and CloudFront fetches this content and show to the user globally basically to make it faster and low latency availability. Now the problem is here, what they are saying it, if my content needs to be public, then only CloudFront can access. Here same is. So we are talking about EC2 instances now, correct, right now. So CloudFront is a content delivery network that can help you to increase the performance of your web application and significantly lower the latency of delivering content to your customers. For CloudFront to access an origin, the source of the content behind CloudFront, the origin has to be publicly available and reachable. That is the requirement. Anyone with the origin domain name or IP address could request content directly and bypass the CloudFront. That is what we wanted to. However, you can use the security groups to permit only CloudFront to access the origin. So you can use the security group. Security group has a allow rules, correct? So who can access this? So Amazon S3 provides, origin provides a feature called origin access identity. This is for S3 only. I'm talking about security group is not for S3. Security group for is a EC2 instance. Another option is if you have hosted in S3 bucket, so origin access identity. So like from where you are accessing, so that is very important. Then only you can access those, which blocks public access to selected buckets and making them accessible only through CloudFront. So if question would be talking about Amazon S3, then what would it be using for that? Origin access identity option you would have been using if that was question based on the S3, but this question is based on EC2. When you use CloudFront to secure your web application, it is important to ensure that only CloudFront can access your origin, such as Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud or Amazon Application Load Balancer, or any direct access origin is restricted. You can create AWS Lambda functions to automatically update the Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Okay, using Lambda update VPC. That is what they are talking about. So this is your VPC. What needs to be updated here? To update the security group with CloudFront service IP ranges to permit only CloudFront access. So what it means, your EC2 instance is in this VPC. You use the Lambda function. Lambda function, if you don't know, then this is one program which can continuously run based on your event or schedule. You can do it. So what it would do, basically EC2 instance needs security group who is allowed to. So Lambda's responsibility to update the security group. What they would update? So CloudFront is an Amazon provided services. CloudFront continuously changes its IP address, basically IP addresses, correct? Changes. Now you need to update the security group frequently as soon as CloudFront CloudFront IP addresses are updated. So what Lambda does, it would query this CloudFront service, get the list of IP address and update in the allow list of security group. Correct? That is what you need to design this basically, correct? So you can let me read more, then it would be more. But Lambda's purpose here to update security group frequently, because CloudFront IP addresses are keep changing. They are not static, correct? And if they are keep changing, and how security group you can configure, one time configuration you can't do, correct? Here you need to keep updating your security group configuration as well. So CloudFront is allowed to connect to this EC2 instances. CloudFront has its own IP addresses, correct? So try to understand, CloudFront has its own IP addresses which are keep changing. If this keep changing, if we want to allow IP addresses of CloudFront, then security group needs to be updated with this IP addresses. How frequently CloudFront updates this IP? Based on that, we can schedule our Lambda function. Lambda function get a list of all IP addresses and update the security group. Now let's read again. You can create a AWS Lambda function, automatically update Amazon Virtual Cloud security group, basically EC2 instance security group, or on VPC level also you can update the security group with CloudFront service IP ranges to permit only CloudFront to access the origin basically. So that is what it is saying. You need to fetch the IP addresses of CloudFront service regularly. AWS publishes the IP ranges of in JSON format for the CloudFront and other AWS services. So AWS publishes the IP addresses, correct, whatever it is using regularly. If your origin is an Elastic Load Balancer or Amazon EC2 instance, you can use VPC security groups to allow only CloudFront IP ranges to access your application. The IP ranges in the list are separated by services and reason, and you must be specify only IP ranges that corresponding to CloudFront. So you need to get all the IP addresses, get the CloudFront IP addresses, and configure on VPC security group level. the IP ranges that AWS publishes changes frequently, correct? That is what I was saying. And without an automated solution, you would need to retrieve this document frequently to understand the current IP range of the CloudFront, what is currently being used by CloudFront. Frequent polling is inefficient. You cannot frequently poll the basically this, and this is an inefficient way when the IP range changes. Like basically what you are saying is Lambda will continuously poll this and see if, oh okay, if IP address is updated or not, correct? So this is not an mechanism you should use. Frequent polling is not, they are saying it's not. If this IP ranges are not modified immediately, your client might see 504 errors when access CloudFront, correct? So that is also very important thing. You update it and suddenly what happens, like these IP addresses are not yet applied to CloudFront, correct? It means when somebody try to access your content with the wrong IP, then 504 error they would say, basically not access. Additionally, there are numerous IP ranges for each service. Performing the change manually is not an efficient way. Obviously manual, it is not possible, correct, to updating this IP ranges. This means you need an infrastructure to support the task. However, in the case you end up with another host to manage complete with typical patching, like they are saying, it's like to do this entire activity you can have another instance and do this all, but that would have a more headache basically. So as you can see, on a small task could be quickly become more complicated the problem you maintained it. So what you have to do, use Amazon simple notification service, Amazon SNS. What SNS does basically, the SNS you can assume is this is one kind of topic, correct? So suppose CloudFront IP changes is updated, correct? So it publishes one message on this topic, and whoever is a subscriber basically, correct, it can be your Lambda function, it can be any other thing, basically SQS or anything, correct? Whoever is the subscriber, like let's say in our case is Lambda, would listen this message, and then as soon as it listen the message, update the security group of VPC. So that the mechanism you need to implement, so via SNS. So it's listening as a subscriber. So only though, then only when changes happens, then only you are implementing your changes, rather than keep polling this CloudFront is not a good idea. So message sent to topic whenever the AWS IP ranges changes. So that is very important concept. You need to question, you may get a question based on this, which service to be used for this configure this Lambda. So SNS you would be using for listening the IP ranges changes for the CloudFront. Very important point. Remember, okay, enabling you to build the event driven architecture serverless solution. You don't need any EC2 instance, then you just need a Lambda functions and upload those code to Amazon, and then that would be triggered as soon as. So updates IP ranges for your security groups and needs to be used. So let me explain you furthermore basically on this too, what Amazon is saying. CloudFront continuously changes its IP addresses, correct? Continuously changes, but you can't continuously poll this CloudFront and give me, okay, previous list of IP addresses was this, now new list of IP addresses is this, compare it, and whatever difference is there, update that in security group of that VPC, correct? This is your VPC. That is not good solution basically, correct? It's doable but not a good solution. That is what saying. So don't do this kind of thing. So if CloudFront changes its IP addresses, this is your CloudFront which continuously changes IP address. So there is a way Amazon provide, you can have a topic basically, one topic you can, that topic is your SNS, you can create on using SNS. So as soon as IP addresses changes, it publishes that range of new IP addresses to this topic. Now somebody has to subscribe to get this. So Lambda function can be subscribe this topic, okay? So whenever the new message comes from this topic, Lambda receive it, it triggered this Lambda function. You need to write some code for that, and this code will do what? Update the IP range for delete old IP range, basically whatever you delete old IP ranges, and add new IP ranges to be basically access. So CloudFront can access those instance, EC2 instance, whatever configuration you have, like basically content, and anybody from public basically, even if they know the IP addresses or all this information of this cannot access basically because they are not permitted. Only IP range of CloudFront is permitted. So that is this, being a solution architect, you should be able to design such a thing when question asked, correct? And you need to understand. So that is very critical. You understand how to do this kind of setup. So that's all about this question. Very important. It covers 2-3 important concepts which you need to understand, correct? So to answer this question, you can use security groups to permit only CloudFront access origin. So yes, that we would be using and submit this. So this is an answer. But how to design this solution, that is what it is being explained here. Okay. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this session. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe it, and uh, please visit hadoopexam.com for more material from hadoopexam.com. Thank you. I'm stopping now.